Thanks for joining another episode of the Good Neighbor Podcast. I'm Tish Taylor with Concerned Citizens of St. John. As always, we're here to educate and hopefully to empower you to be a good neighbor. Take a stand for something and mean it. Learn something new, share it, and actually walk the walk. Today, I am honored. I'm honored all the time. Okay, fine, I am. But I have royalty sitting at the table with me today. We have a 37-year Army veteran, the man that we all know as the Category 5 General. This is the person who swooped down to New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina and set everybody straight when there was chaos. He came in and said, okay, this is how we're going to do it. And first of all, we're going to treat the people that are victims of a catastrophe like they're human beings. The general has picked up a lot of issues, and today we're going to talk about what's new, a little bit of the old stuff too, but what's new. So I hope that you're watching the podcast, that you're sharing it, and let's listen and learn. Thank you for joining us, General Honoré.
Well, thanks, Tish, for that very warm welcome. Thank you very much.
I'm putting on my green Army button while we talk. So, as you started in the military, what was it, this type of stuff coming in after total chaos and putting things back together? What gave you this expertise for the president to call you and say, go down there and please help?
Well, at the time Katrina hit, I was a 35-year veteran in the Army, commanding 1st United States Army in Atlanta. And our mission was to provide military support east of the Mississippi River in the United States. So we would do occasional training on pandemics, nuclear weapons release, and hurricanes, fires, and floods. We would train on that in the event we would need it. Then the role of First Army, with me as the commander, would be able to provide military support to civil authority. So when Katrina hit, it was us executing of what our contingency mission was: be prepared to assist civil authorities in saving lives in America.
Yeah, well, you know you're known for all of these wonderful phrases. Put them guns away. Put them guns away, pointed at our community. That was terrible. There's just so many things that people know about you and they appreciate you. But I know the evolution of General Honoré has become an advocate for the environment. So tell me about the Green Army and how you started with that.
Well, not to go back too far in history, I grew up in Point Parish, down the river, about 25 miles north of Baton Rouge, along the river. In a farm community, grew up on a subsistence farm, and I joined the 4-H club. That was my first appreciation for the preservation of the soil and to save and raise healthy animals, and to be aware of how we handle the chemicals on the farm, because the downstream impact they could have in the bayous where we fished. That was my first appreciation. Then somewhere around my junior year in high school, the 4-H club had a forestry camp in North Louisiana, a place called Colfax, a historic place in our history. And I went there, and we spent maybe 10 days out in the woods, studying the trees, studying the birds. And much of it was based on the concept of conservation, not fighting pollution, but a conservation on how we needed to continue to plant trees, that the trees were good for our air and our earth because of their role in the carbon process. And it was just a continuous education. Then coming back my last 2 years in high school, we took other awareness course in the 4-H Club and the New Farmers of America, ensuring that we handled chemicals well on the farm with safety. So that's where it began. In the Army, I didn't get active in watching what was going on with, most of our equipment in the Army is not built around being environmental friendly. It uses a lot of fuel because we buy speed and power.
Right.
But the Army became cognizant in the 1980 of what we're doing in the environment. So we would park a truck, and we had to put a pan underneath the truck to make sure if the truck had dropped a spot of oil, we would catch it.
Oh.
And a part of your inspection, when you brought your vehicles back and you put them in what we call the motor pool, when you parked that truck, you had to have a pan underneath it in the event a spot of oil. When you fill a Humvee up with fuel, you had to have a pan underneath the fuel point. I mean, we were very strict in the Army in compliance from that perspective. What we were not strict on was the impact of the emissions, our tanks, Bradleys, and vehicles, because they were built for speed and power, not with anything that adjusts the amount of pollution we put in the air. But when we went out to training, the last day in training, our job was to clean up the area. And the sergeants would take charge and would go all over the woods looking for paper, plastic. In the Army, like most of our society, they have a lot of waste plastic. MREs come in play. You had to pick all that up before you could go home. So we were doing that kind of the work in the Army. Then as the 1st Army Commander, before Katrina, I was training troops at Camp Shelby, Mississippi. And I was riding around the camp, and when they come, and I'm seeing all these white styrofoam cups. And I went in what we call a mess hall to eat, and they had styrofoam plates, styrofoam cups, and plastic, one-time use plastic forks. I said, why are we using this? They said, well, we can order it, and we don't have to wash forks. You have a washing machine? Yeah, but this is simpler. When you're getting paid, and I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to stop using styrofoam in the 1st Army. And then all the pushback came and said, well, why are you against styrofoam? I said, we don't know how long styrofoam lasts, and there's nothing good about it. It's a one-time use product. And oh, by the way, we've got plastic, reused plastic plates in the mess hall. We got reused plastic trays in the mess hall. All we got to do is wash them. And we got reused forks. So we're getting out of the styrofoam business. Now, you can go to paper, but we're getting out of styrofoam. And I could tell them I'm a command. They thought this was, where's this old crazy general going with this? But I had an appreciation because much had written about, we don't know how long styrofoam will last because nobody's lived that long.
Yeah.
Because it's a one-time use product. It ends up all over our community. And we saw in the 80s the fast foods industry. They all use styrofoam. And the awareness came about the same time we were putting that pan underneath the truck in the Army. Hey, we need to be aware of and they switched back to paper.
Yeah.
And then they switched back to plastic straws. And then some of them, you go to places like Puerto Rico, you can't get a plastic straw because they've demanded. They're all over Louisiana. But if you go to the state capitol in Louisiana, guess what they have? Styrofoam cups.
Stop the madness.
In the state capitol in Louisiana, as opposed to paper cups. And it's a cultural shift we've got to make, because if we don't, we're unintentionally polluting Mother Earth with plastics and with styrofoam. And they're made from fossil fuel, where we could be using paper straw. I grew up using paper straw.
Yeah.
That's what you probably grew up with.
Yeah.
And they work fine.
Yes.
But there's an ism. We need to have a cultural shift in America if we're going to save Mother Earth. That's the big picture of how I got to an appreciation, and that was the only order I recall when I was in 1st Army, that we would have a command policy not to use styrofoam and plastic.
And it worked.
And it worked.
That's excellent.
It took a little while to use the supplies we had on hand, but all you went in the Army catalog, as opposed to ordering styrofoam, you order paper.
Right.
And you don't order the plastic fork because they were one-time use. going straight to the landfill.
Landfill. So just
So-
use the dishwasher.
Use the dishwasher. You got the forks. I mean, that's what we do.
Yeah, yeah.
And we can do the same thing at home.
I do that often. I have a big pet peeve about styrofoam and plastic. I'm giving away the little old school wicker plate holders that you used to have at picnics where you put a paper plate in it.
Yeah.
And it's microwavable. And that
Yeah.
means buy the paper plates, put it on this wicker plate holder, and put it in the microwave. Never microwave any plastic or styrofoam. Remove it from your to-go plates.
Yeah.
Remove the food. And just the basic, simple things at home. You bought the plastic already, reuse it. But don't buy any more. How about we just reuse what we have? And so that's things that we try to empower people and educate them on simple, basic things that could helpfully reduce the need for more production of plastic, because they do come from the petrochemical industry, which is hard to believe, but it's real.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So tell me about the Green Army and how you set it up to work, because I know when I started listening to, joining your meetings, we talked about the policymakers, the movers and the shakers of the government, and how we can help advocate for the environment through policy.
Well, as a nation, we operate off a constitutional democracy with articles in that democracy. And then there are rules and state laws that we must abide by. And generally speaking, that has sustained us for 250 years. But it wasn't until the 1970s when we created the Clean Drinking Water Act and the Clean Water Act.
Right.
And then President Reagan, during his time, said, hey, we got to have a Clean Air Act because
Yes.
we're killing the trees in the Northeast. That we had enforceable laws to control the amount of pollution we were putting into on our earth, where we live, where we breathe, where we raise our food, where we raise our children. And those three laws are still the principle by which we can get some form of enforcement. But it's not the enforcement that we get in controlling the pollution like you or I get. If you go down the road and you go through La Paz at 80 miles an hour, you get stopped, you get a ticket.
Yeah. You pay.
And if you had passed or your license not straight, you go to jail. Or you've been drinking, you got other people at risk. They don't do that with the plants in Louisiana. They'll go to a plant like they did up at Smitty's in Roseland, found the plant to be deficient, and let them continue to operate. Then a short time after, the plant explodes. And they go in and say, oh, well, we're gonna contain the spill. And they go to it containing the spill. Then you find out that place had been inspected recently, and both the state and the federal government allowed the plant to continue to operate.
Yes. Yes.
Then 2 months later, you see the state and the federal government sue the plant. We need an analysis of what government do to us. Government will pick you up if you're in violation
Yeah.
of the law, a gross violation of the law,
Yes.
because you're putting others at risk, like if you're driving under impairment, either drugs, prescription, or whatever, or alcohol. We don't do that with the plants. We saw that right here with Danka.
Absolutely.
You find them in violation, the state and the federal government come in, give them a piece of paper that the public don't get to know about. Now, when you get that DUI, what's in the paper the next day?
Oh, your picture with a DUI.
You think Danka got a notice the next day that you failed an inspection?
No way.
So why did they put people's name in the paper? Because they want the public to know.
Yeah.
But a plant that can blow up like Smitty's did, even though the federal government and the state had been in there multiple times, they never told the public the risk that plant had, nor did they tell the plant, pause.
Yeah.
When you get these things that don't endanger your workers and the public, you can go back to work. Call us, we'll come re-inspect.
Right.
But it's showing in that court filing by the state and the federal government and the Attorney General of the state of Louisiana who are now suing that plant that they operated after they were told that these things would endanger the people and the environment. We've got to change that in Louisiana.
Yeah.
Because it's always, and you've experienced here in St. John Parish, where time after time we knew Danker would get inspected because we would smell or people would get sick. We'd call it DQ, they'd come out, they'd go in, they'd put an air monitor out, then they'd come out and leave. The plant never stopped.
Never.
We have to somehow get some accountability. And when you ask the question about policy, all we got is the law. And the three major laws are Clean Water Act, Clean Drinking Water Act, Clean Air Act. Clean Drinking Water Act, that's what we drink. Clean Water Act, that's what goes into streams and bayous, like the discharge they were doing at Danker.
Right.
And the Clean Air Act covers a region that's monitored by I don't think is enough air monitors. The state, we have the same number of air monitors as Arkansas. We got 15 times more chemical plants. So what's wrong with that picture?
Well, we don't want to know.
And then where they locate the air monitors, they're not necessarily adjusted to the number of plants we have now.
Right.
Because you're getting at the prevailing downwind of the plant. So we've done the minimum with air monitoring by saying, okay, we're going to put it over here. No, you need one in all directions because the wind blows in all directions.
Absolutely.
Because this direction might be a subdivision, but over here might be another plant.
Right.
And if there's a discharge coming from that plant or going that way, we need to monitor that too. Thus, we've used the word fence line air monitoring,
Right.
which we've tried for over 8 years, and we got another bill Senator Duplessis is bringing this year on air monitoring, where we have learned from the past to be able to codify that bill with a chance to get it out of committee. So we're a nation of laws. That's what they tell us.
That's what they tell us.
When we break a First Amendment or we do civil disobedience, we're a nation of laws. You got to be held accountable. Okay, got it. But that nation of laws don't work when it comes to holding industry accountable. Right. And I'm not against industry. Mm-hmm. Our mission in the Green Army is to find solutions for pollution. Yeah. You create your chemicals, you keep it in the pipe. You don't hurt me, no harm, no foul.
Right.
If you have a discharge, you clean it up and you tell us about it.
Right.
If your plant's at risk, you let us know so we can go safe place.
Right.
That's all we're asking for.
But that doesn't
Because
happen.
believe it or not, a lot of the chemicals they make in Cancer Alley, the DNA of this cup got some Cancer Alley in it.
Yeah.
Either from the plastic lid or the paint.
Yeah.
Know that for a fact.
Yeah.
The DNA of much of what we use, that pen, that phone, all that has a DNA from Cancer Alley. The gas I use on the way here. Yeah. So it's a necessary function for what we live with and for. But we've got to enforce the laws and we got to respect the law. For about 4 years, we went through a cycle of focusing on environmental justice.
Yeah.
Makes you feel good, but there's no law.
Right.
The law is Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act.
Yes.
You got me?
And that was a wonderful message that you sent to climate reality.
Yeah. So we've got to get on with enforcing the law.
Yes.
The good news is policy you can change. If you don't like what it is, you wait till the next administration come in and change it. And that's what happened to us. The bottom fell out on environmental justice because it was policy. Mm-hmm. It wasn't written in the law. Mm-hmm. So the political side, my original impression was, I don't have nothing to do with politics. But then I had to differentiate that from when people were telling me they want me to run for politics. That's a no. Yeah. I spent 37 years in the Army. I'd rather be an advocate and I'm using people that's had much more superpower than me. The inspirations going back to Frederick Douglass, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Jesse Jackson to mention as we lay him to rest today.
Mm-hmm.
People that were not politicians but were able to influence inside their sphere of influence.
Yeah.
So being back home in Louisiana, kind of universally recognized in all quarters, in all political sphere, is how do I use that voice to help enforce the law where we can protect the people, protect our water, protect our land. Because without that, you can have all the big plants you want. And if our people, our water, and our air are suffering, we don't get the benefit of the industry that can have a positive impact on where people live and how they live. But I had to get into the legislature. We had to go there and work with legislators to pass laws. It's something I didn't want to do. I'm uncomfortable in doing it, but it's the hard work that needs to be done if we're going to create change in Louisiana. We've got to work those 3 laws and see how we can get them to work for the people of Louisiana. Because the other side, Tish,
Mm-hmm.
they hire lobbyists.
Yeah, we know. We see them.
We create jobs, your organization, mine, and the others. When we go to the legislature with a bill, a lot of lobbyists are happy because some of them get paid $4,000 or $5,000 a day to be lobbyists. When we go in and say we need a clean air bill, there'll be $40,000 to $50,000 worth of lobbyists there that day saying no,
Yeah. And
being
us.
paid for by the petrochemical business.
Yeah.
And they come in as experts. I've seen them fly them in from New York to come counter 2 points on why we don't need air monitoring,
Yeah.
or why we don't need early warning if a plant blows up.
Right.
And we've got instances here where they've gone 24 hours with telling people shelter in place and not telling them what's in the air.
Oh, we did
Somebody know what's in the air.
that. Yeah, we did that with Marathon.
Yeah.
Marathon burned, and then, we were told to evacuate, and then said it was safe to come home, and then it burned 24 more hours, where those actual emissions made a whole 306. What is it? 360.
Mm-hmm.
360 degrees of chemicals across the whole parish that people did not know about. The schools were being evacuated while this thing was burning.
Wow.
They knew that was burning since early that morning before. But instead of saying, we need to send an alert out to the community, shelter in place or evacuate, people went to work, the children stood outside and caught school buses and went to school. They had recess and lunch. And then they came back thinking they were safe, and they still were not. So they went back to school the next day, and this thing still was spewing out poison. And there's nothing that we can do about it. With concerned citizens and regulators, state regulators, LDEQ, we did not understand when EPA came and told us we had when they came and told us we had that highest risk of cancer, and they said 0.2 micrograms of cubic meters of air is the safest level of chloroprene exposure. We had no idea that our problem wasn't so much the plant spewing the poison, then it was the regulators who refused to regulate. They would not enforce anything. Until this day, they will not enforce it, to the point of standing with the people that were saying, well, we're not going to make billions of dollars if we actually lower the emissions. That's safe for the community that we built on top of. And then people come in and say, well, they should move. Everything except we have laws. And the laws are supposed to be enforced. So why isn't the state doing their job? They're getting paid, they're getting funding to regulate these industries. And instead of doing that, they are giving a pass, because these frontline communities are disposable. They're in a sacrifice zone. That's been noted, and that means that we can build these beautiful neighborhoods after we have land that we have access to, and it was okay for them after we've built and have generations of families to come and build this monstrosity in our neighborhood and poison us. And the state says it's okay.
Well, let me just break it down the way I understand it.
Okay.
there's a term of practice in our trade of environmentalists called regulatory capture. A regulatory capture is when the regulators are actually controlled by the people they regulate.
Yeah.
It's called regulatory capture. And that's what we have in Louisiana, where the industry tell the regional politician, don't let this bill pass. Because our politicians, they get paid $17,000 a year. You know that's what a legislator makes?
I didn't know that.
At that price, you can buy anybody you want.
Yeah.
Because that person is subject to needing donations. I had a senator one time, we were doing a bill on abandoned oil wells. And the guy was a cousin of mine. And I said, are you going to support it? We need one more vote to pass this bill to hold the oil and gas company accountable. And he said, cuz I can't do that. Exxon going to give me money for my Senate campaign. Hello.
That means a commitment to Exxon.
It was like a $3,000 donation to his campaign. When you're poor, it's expensive to be poor because you can be bought off. And a third of our legislators are lawyers. I commend anybody who put themselves out there to run for office and be a legislator because you get a lot of exposure. That exposure for many of them, that third that come to the Capitol, the other 9 months of the year, most of them working for the oil and gas companies. And you can see they're not defending the people, they're defending the oil and gas company in court. And a small bunch of them are suing the oil and gas company for the clients. But about a third of the legislature are lawyers. So they spend 9 months figuring out how they're going to come create laws to protect the petrochemical. That's just my big picture and my own exaggeration, because it might be a third, it might be half of them.
Yeah.
But anecdotally, it's about a third of them are lawyers or consultants. And you'll see their names on paperwork where they're advocating for a permit. And off season, they'll go to a hearing and advocate for a client that's paying them to get a permit, an air permit. And too many times in Louisiana, we get the LDEQ will declare this as a minor air permit, meaning it's not Title V, which comes under EPA and state rule for constant monitoring. They'll issue a minor air permit. And all that's done through the influence, through the politicians, from the industry that, or the lobbyists that support that industry, like the Chemical Association.
Right.
Or the Mid-Continental Oil Association. They have a lot more resources, a lot more power. But the most powerful scene I've seen in the legislature, we had an air monitoring bill maybe 12 years ago. And it was around in St. Bernard Parish. It was a refinery there. And this grandmama brought a baby on her hip. And she said, we need air monitoring. And with a baby on her hip, my 18-year-old grandson has cancer. We need air monitoring. Got that bill out of committee.
Oh my God.
Got it out of the National Resource Committee. Guess what happened when it got to the Senate? Got crushed. Got crushed. Because everybody in there was convinced we need to monitor this air better than what we're doing. Got crushed. And almost every year since then, we've had an air monitoring bill. The last significant one we had, then Senator Fields had it in the legislature. You were there, I'm pretty sure. You were there that day, because your representative or senator was the chair. And we gave him all the details on why we need mandatory air monitoring. And one of the buds in there, one of the representatives, with all due respect, I respect him, said, well, if this going to cost industry money, I ain't for it.
Isn't that something?
His job is to protect the people. Article 9 of the Constitution is the first role in Louisiana government is to protect the people and safety of the people, not to save Danker or Exxon money or Dow.
Right.
The Constitution says the safety of the people should come first. Here this man telling me if it's going to cost the company money, the downside of not controlling the chemicals enhance the medical issues we have. It shortens life. There's some studies that show we have a 10-year less life expectancy just for living in Louisiana.
Yeah. Well, I can believe that. We're living it. We're living it.
And you talk to the other side, like they did in the Rotary Club last week, and they bring the old trope up. Well, they eat a lot of fried chicken down there and smoke and drink.
Oh my God! Blaming the victim is
They
it's
keep doing
infuriating. It's infuriating.
And that happened in the Rotary Club last week. The guy played a film that said there's no Cancer Alley from the Louisiana Chemical Association. So I got rid of my friends at Rotary. I said, what are y'all doing? You know that guy's a lobbyist? You think he going to admit there's a pollution problem in Louisiana for the Chemical Association? They allowed him to come into the room and brief them that there's no thing at Cancer Alley, and he spent his 25 minutes and then brought a film up with some so-class expert. He said, well, the real problem in Louisiana, they eat a lot of fried chicken.
This was St. John Rotary Club?
No,
okay.
Baton Rouge.
Baton Rouge.
Yeah. You can pull it up online.
Oh my God! Well, it's just a matter of these organizations, the chamber. I find that the chamber comes in all the time with the lobbyists.
Oh yeah.
For us, the parishes, and they come in with their suits and they stand out and they stand away from everybody else,
and
then they come and say, "We need this in our community for economic development and jobs." Well, we're not seeing those jobs.
Yeah.
We're not seeing the jobs, and our streets are flooding. We have all types of issues, infrastructure-wise. So where's our money going? I pay my taxes. They don't pay taxes.
We give them something called industrial tax exemption.
Oh yeah.
So we'll look at the new plants that's starting to come.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them getting over $1 billion tax exemption.
Yeah.
And what the people in the parish need to understand, when your parish council, who has a say in that, or it goes to the governor's council, and they say, yeah, we're going to give you a 10-year tax exemption for 200 jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Normally they'll end up with 100 jobs. Those jobs end up costing the state in tax money about $1 million a piece.
Yeah.
To bring a job that might pay $70,000 a year.
That we know for a fact, majority of those jobs are not coming to the people on the fence line.
No. And they're not coming to necessarily that community.
Mm-hmm.
I drove by the plant, the refinery down in Plaquemine Parish. It was during Katrina.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I said, drive through that yard right there. And it was an off-service company that had helicopters come in and take crews up.
Mm-hmm.
9 out of 10 cars there were from Texas, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Tennessee.
Yeah.
I said, well, where are all these jobs for the Louisiana people?
Right.
Not there.
Yeah. Check the traffic when it's time for knockoff for these plants. They all heading the North Shore, heading west. They are not here in the parish. And what's bad is with us is our government officials live here.
Give me that tablet right there.
I don't see my chicken scratched.
We're going to do an illustration
Uh-oh.
that hopefully you can pick it up on the camera.
We're going to show it.
Okay, the dot is the plant.
Mm-hmm.
What the petrochemical industry has adapted is something that was constructed during the labor strikes of the early 20th century.
Okay.
And when labor organized, at that point in time, people lived in what we call the fence line.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have public transportation, you walked to work.
Right.
On your way to work, there were bars and cafes
Businesses.
Everybody working that plant, the majority of them, but they were fence-line people.
Right. Right.
So what the union busters figured out is stop hiring people from here. Hire people at least 20 miles away, 30 miles away. Because what you don't have is that social construct where they can meet after work and on Friday and organize.
Mm-hmm. But that also removes all of the economic development, the money that could come in to help other businesses form.
Hello. So this guy here now has to go to find a job over here. This one goes over here.
Yeah.
And here's the Mississippi River. And this one got to go over here. These two guys got to go back and forth over that river. The way they've applied that in Louisiana, and I'm going to give you an example of how they applied it. They said, we're not going to hire anybody within 5 to 10 miles of the plant.
Mm-hmm.
Because with current data, if we got a lot of people working in the plant catching cancer, mm-hmm. it raises the flag. Mm-hmm. But if that plant's in St. John and that person lived in, let's say, Roseland, mm-hmm. or live in Amite, when that cancer data going to end up there, it won't be concentrated here.
Wow.
You hear me?
Yes.
So you got all these plants right here in Cancer Alley, and you get around Baton Rouge. You got plants on this side of the river and on this side of the Mississippi River. So the guy at Exxon, he's not going to hire anybody to live in Scotlandville because it's downwind of the plant. So he hired a guy out of Plaquemine, Louisiana, and one over Donaldsonville. The plant in Donaldsonville and Plaquemine, Dow, they're not going to hire anybody from here. They'll hire somebody from New Roads because they're inside the circle. So they've applied to break up the clusters so you don't see the cluster. That's the case. I was in St. Gabriel, and I was talking to a young man working for the mayor. He said and I talked to him about it. He said, you know, this is true. He had gone to a local plant and applied for a job. He was college educated. He was working a low-paying job for the mayor. Don't pay a lot of money with few benefits. And he said, I went to the plant. The guy doing the hiring was my high school classmate. And he said, the guy told me. He said, where do you live? He said, I live in St. Gabriel. He said, I tell you what, go get you a mailbox in New Roads, and I'll hire you. This is what they're doing. And you know what? That's how we're making this work. And they're telling the guy in New Roads, get a mailbox in St. Gabriel. You hear me?
Yes. Geez, Sam. I know
so
that.
they can show that they hire people local, but the guy actually live in New Roads.
Yeah.
It's a game. It's a scam.
That we lose.
So we don't get local hires because they want to avoid the cluster. And the way to do that is they hire people outside the box. He told his friend what to do. Go get your mailbox in New Road and I'll hire you. But by and large, you wouldn't hire the people there because they're too close to the plant.
Right.
And if there's a cluster, it would be easily identified. You with me?
Yes.
So they don't hire people. But then you make all this traffic going over this river.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most of the people who work on the East Bank live on the West Bank.
Yeah.
Most of them live on the West Bank. And it's organized, it's an organized crime, what they're doing.
Most of the people that I know, General, work at different plants in different parishes. Only a few work here. There it is.
Point made.
Wow.
It's a concept I'll leave with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow.
But that concept was originally designed to break up unions.
Yeah. And they broke against them. Yeah.
To diffuse the workforce so it don't look like a cluster. And then the other thing that has happened over time is that they've diffused the data. I was right here in St. John Parish maybe 8 years ago. We had a meeting at the little Catholic school next to near Danka. That school's closed now.
Our Lady of Grace.
And it was a nice meeting. We had the parish president. We had the Region 6 EPA guy, and we had the LDQ. Nice, well-run meeting. And somebody, might have been myself, they said, well, let's talk about Cancer Alley. And the LD and the lady from the parish president at the time, one of our people said, we don't have no cancer here, General. We don't have no cancer here than anywhere else. And then the LDQ said, amen. There's no proof that we got more cancer. I said, yeah, but your data come from the tumor registry, and their data is suspect. So the lady jumped up. She's old hippie, long hair, little jacket. They both, 2 or 3 of them look alike. My age group, old hippies. And they get up and say, there's no cancer problem here. I said, your data is suspect. And I asked the people, I said, how many of y'all in the room have cancer in your house or somebody you know died? And over half the room, they don't believe in tribal data. With tribal data, and Harvard did a study on it, you got to believe tribal data. You can't tell the people they ain't feeling it.
Right, right.
And that's what the government keeps telling me. There's no such thing as Cancer Alley. When last week on the Green Army call, one of our young men mentioned 4 people in the last year died from cancer in his family.
Yeah.
Uncles, aunts, cousins. Now you tell that person there's no cancer problem in that community?
Yeah.
There is not a cancer problem because at the end of that conference, this lady walked up to me and she said, Gerald, I spent 2 years taking care of my husband. He died. He worked in the plant for over 25 years, and he had blood cancer. That's what killed him. And we think it's attributed to the work he did. He was a clean living guy, no heavy drinking, no smoking. But he was diagnosed with blood cancer, and I took off from work. I stayed at home, took care of him. He got sick at the end. We rushed him to the hospital, and he had got pneumonia in his lung from just laying in the bed and any minor infection. He said, guess what they put on his death certificate? Pneumonia.
Yeah.
So it's a setup.
Yeah.
The people in the hospital say, what was he admitted for? Pneumonia. There's no evaluation that says he was being treated for blood cancer for the last 2 years, taking chemo, doing all kind of.
Yeah.
They put pneumonia. Well, your data going to be skewed if that's what you're doing.
And that's what's on the death certificates.
And we found out the data was being taken on yellow pieces of paper. Marjorie from the state would call Karen down at the hospital, hey, I need your numbers for the month. Well, let me go back and see. It wasn't a scientific process. It's not designed to be a scientific process. And when we look at our cancer rate, it should be easy for the state to determine what the cancer rates are when people look at what medicines they're taking and look at what people are being treated in the hospital for.
Right.
But they don't collect that data, and if they do collect it, they say, well, we can't share that with Reserve because it would be a violation of HIPAA because people would read it the wrong way. Well, yeah, if you got 20 people dying a month from cancer, that should be public knowledge.
That's right. And
they look at it, well, it's going to excite the people.
It should. It should.
There's always 2 sides to that story. When we were doing Danka Hot and Heavy closing the school, remember that?
Yeah.
And y'all were leading the charge here, and we were playing backup. I had a lady call me one Sunday. And she said, General, I understand you want to close that school. You know what's right next to that school? My house. We got a subdivision. You know, got a little one-street subdivision. Nice little housing. She said, what's going to happen to the value of my house if you close that school? She's not talking about her kids.
Or the value of her life.
Right. She's talking about what's going to be the value of a house. The more we live with the chemical industry, the more we can act like them. And we can't live like that.
Yeah.
We're going to provide the next generation an opportunity to live with clean air and clean water.
Yes.
Because if not, many of them are going to die.
Right.
From things they can't see and they can't taste.
They can't smell. In most cases, what we smell is not as toxic as the things that we don't see and
So the
smell.
legislature is starting. here's our action. You'll be part of the gang.
Yeah.
We'll bring the gang together down to the Capitol. We have a draft clean air monitoring bill. Coming back again. Don't give up.
This is a good one.
And it's well structured. We learned from the past. We got a strong senator precedent. I can't say too much because it's his bill.
Right.
In Louisiana, some states, if you get so many signatures, you can bring a bill. Not Louisiana.
Yeah.
We still don't have a law in Louisiana that forces recusal. Because you can have somebody that's a lawyer for the chemical business sitting on the Natural Resource Committee, and he can vote no on your bill because they don't have to recuse himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
In Louisiana, that's called, well, I know about the business, so I'm telling you no. So we got that bill, and then we're working on an aquifer bill. We got 3 major aquifers in Louisiana. The Sparta Aquifer in North Louisiana. We got the Southern Hill Aquifer that basically traced the Mississippi River and covered the North Shore parishes. That's called Sparta. It comes out of Mississippi. And then on the western part of the state, we got something called the Chico Aquifer. Last year, the legislature killed the Southern Hill Aquifer Commission because they were in an argument with the Baton Rouge Water Company and Exxon because the commission had wanted everyone who draw water out of the aquifer to have a meter. The Baton Rouge Water Company didn't want it, Exxon didn't want it. So they just got the legislature to get rid of the commission that had been formed in 1975 to monitor the use of the aquifer, that we save the aquifer for future generations. So the legislature that is dominant on both sides, doing what Exxon asks, and with the Baton Rouge Water, a private company, killed the commission. But guess what? They left the Sparta Commission in North Louisiana. It's called the Sparta Groundwater Commission, Conservation District. They left it in. So I come back and we talked to the legislature. She put some language in. And the writers came back and said, you want it to look like Sparta? I said, hell yeah.
Yes.
But we also wanted for capital area and for Southern Hill Aquifer, we also wanted for Chico. Because when I spoke to the Department of Natural Resource director about the Chico Aquifer and why they don't have a commission, he said, well, the rice farmers won't allow it. You are the government. We need to save the water for future generations. Yeah, the farmers got unfiltered use of water, but they ought not dictate to the greater community. There's 900,000 people drink water out of Chico Aquifer. How many rice farmers we had over there? Maybe 100? And they're going to tell everybody else that
It don't matter.
it don't matter to them on how much water they use. So those are the 2 bills we're working. The other thing we got to do, quick response, and we'll need your help. Okay, as we were talking about the bills that we know that are designed to protect the people, the other thing we've got to be on the ready for, and what we're going to need Tish and everybody else in our Green Army Network is to be prepared to respond to bad bills. Bills that are regressive. Bills that reduce the requirements for enforcement of known laws. And we'll see some of that. As we stood by and watched last year, there's something called carbon capture coming to Louisiana.
Yes.
The legislature, they're owned by one party, both sides, and the fourth floor. And they brought a bill in and they passed it. Nothing could stop them. And basically what that bill say is, we can take your land to put a pipeline on. Now, it wasn't the intent of eminent domain. That was designed for if they're going to put a highway in, or we want to put a school here, it's for the greater part. Now the legislature has interpreted that is, you take your land and put a pipeline on it.
Right.
And if 80% of the community agree, we can store carbon under your property.
Yeah.
Never before in the history of Louisiana that was possible. But with the work of the lobbyists and the Lajon, that was passed around. Everybody in Creole know what that Lajon is, right?
Tell me what that is.
That's money.
That l'argent,
That's
money.
the way your grandparents said
Yeah,
money,
l'argent.
l'argent.
All right.
The l'argent get passed around at the city club and other places.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we got a law that said we can take your land and we can store carbon under your property if 80% of the community. Now how you get 80%? Well, you got one man with 10,000 acres of forestry, and you got 5 farmers around him. He got 80%, so he can just take this stuff.
Oh, wow.
What an ingenious way. And you know what? They go out the room high-fiving themselves that they've
Evil
just screwed the
geniuses.
people of Louisiana.
Evil geniusness. Oh,
They
geniuses.
passed that law for carbon capture.
Yeah,
So we've got to look at what are the bad bills
right.
that are counter to the health and prosperity of the people of Louisiana. Because there'll be bills that will come in that make no sense. They're very proprietary, that allow a company or a group of our industry to bypass state and federal law. And they officially can't bypass federal law, and that's how we kill some of them, because the legislature will pass a bad bill quick.
Yeah,
Then we got to go sue and go to federal court and say, no, you can't do that.
right.
They passed one a few years ago that said if the company has an accident and if they call the state before the state finds out, then they don't have to pay no fine. Now, they're required to call the state,
Right.
but if they call the state before the state called them and say, hey, y'all got a problem out there,
Yeah, as if.
it's an excuse law. So they can't be sued by the state
That's
if they call the state first. I mean,
That's
who comes up with
ridiculous.
stuff like that?
Right.
But when you got the superpower in both the House and the Senate, bills like that pass.
Yeah, and we've seen that a lot.
So we got to look at what bills we want to go and say no on,
Right.
because the power of the grandmom is the most powerful voice we get. I'm not kidding you, in the House and the Senate.
So I need to lug my grandbaby down there with autism and born premature and all of that stuff, and let them look in my face.
We want to describe that baby to them because we don't want to expose
No,
that
we don't
baby in this current environment.
The hate.
But we want to talk about, let's get this. We have a reason for being here because we live this life.
Yeah.
And we need to expose that we understand that this is a deliberate act all over the l'argent. None of them people who want you to breathe it, they don't live near the plant. Our ancestors were incarcerated on plantation. The plantation owner lived in the big house. These people running these plants, they're not living on that plant.
Yeah.
They're living on St. Charles.
Yeah. If they
Or
live
the-
in the state.
They're living on the country club of Louisiana. Or they're living in Houston or Dallas.
Yeah.
And not as a positive thing, but master lived on the plantation
Yeah.
by and large. These people don't live here. They have no reason, because their kids don't go into school next door.
Right.
They don't pick vegetables out of the garden here. They live in a high-end subdivision someplace. When we had the Bayou Corn accident, it was a bunch of tech bros and money bros out of a subdivision in North Dallas that was running this company that broke the Bayou Corn salt dome.
Oh, I remember the salt dome.
And they called for a community meeting. They called for it in the wrong parish.
So
They had no idea what they were doing. They had people on the ground, but these people broke a geological formation that will never be prepared. They broke a salt dome
And the whole community
and
just
tear apart. That collapsed, and all these people had to move. These bros, these DEI bros, because there's no other way they got the job,
Yeah.
right? Because who they were and the money they had and the influence.
Right.
You understand?
Yes.
They were selected.
Yes.
They were allowed to do that in Louisiana. They didn't even know what parish it was in.
Jesus.
They had the town hall meeting Ascension as opposed to Assumption Parish.
Paris. Jesus.
You know what I mean? This is the kind of thing that's happening in Louisiana, and I love here. I got a right to leave. I don't need to stay here.
Yeah.
I didn't need to come back. But I wanted to get back to my state, what my state gave to me. My state taught me how to read. It kept me safe in school. I went to all segregated school. Everybody know that. Went to Southern University. And then went in the Army for 37 years. But I still, out of my public trust, I owe something to this state.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now I learned a lot in this state. Because you can learn a lot from the bad as you can from the good.
Yeah, we are learning.
And it arms you how to do good by watching how bad leadership operates.
Yeah.
And we're all armed with that because it's multi-generational for us.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the opportunity to talk about these topics with you.
Well, I would love for you to talk about your new book, Leadership in the New Normal.
Yeah, this book got a little age on it. And as is the case, the time is catching up with the book.
As usual. Unfortunately, we can't stop it from happening.
This book, I wrote it around the concept of preparing America for the new normal. And that means going from, at that time it was written 7 to 10 billion people. That it was going to create challenges in America, our infrastructure, our food, and our water, as we go from 7 to 10 billion people in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to have an impact. And how blessed we are to be in America, a country with laws and to protect people's rights. But the universal problem is, with the impact we're having on the environment, that global warming is causing significant weather challenges around the world. And it's causing extreme drought in places like Africa. It's causing sea level rise in places like the Caribbean and the South Asian Sea, where people have to move because the sea level rise, because the ice cap is melting, because we're putting carbon in the air with methane that is melting the ice cap.
Right.
And each year, our coastline in Louisiana is getting higher.
Right.
And it's getting higher in Florida. So that means people's going to have to move back from the water. That's going to give us less arable land to raise that 30% more food we need by 2050 and doing it on less land. And we'll have less available drinking water. When you look at the Midwest, over 50% of the aquifers are depleted from overuse. You go to Arizona, and we got foreign countries coming in, raising alfalfa for the camels and the horses on these huge farms, using aquifer waters, and then they ship that alfalfa back to the Middle East.
Come on, I've
Taking the water out of the aquifer. We got right here in Louisiana, we're constantly challenged by Texas wanting to take water from our lakes and our aquifers in Louisiana. We beat that back twice, but they continue to come back because Texas is overused at drinking water. Of all the water in the world, only 1% of it is drinkable.
Okay. So when we look at Louisiana and we think we got nothing but water all around us, that has nothing to do with what we have that's drinkable.
Just about everything south of Baton Rouge drink river water.
Mm-hmm.
That river water we're drinking, 31 states have drained their sewage and the agriculture and the industrial runoff, and we got to clean it to drink it in the river parishes and in New Orleans. So the challenge is how do we go from 7 to 10 billion people, now 8 to 10 billion people by 2050, and raise more food on less land, where we got less clean drinking water this year than we had last year, and we're going to have less clean drinking water next year than we got this year. We got to find technical solutions to this quickly.
Right.
The other problem we're going to see ourselves having is heat.
Yes.
Last year was some of the first time I can remember that we had people creating cooling stations in the summer.
Right.
And it goes back to that phrase. It was hotter last year It was hotter this year than it was last year, and next year going to be hotter than this year.
Right.
And I won't be surprised in the next couple of years, in August, that this place is going to be full of people because it'll be used as a cooling center.
Yeah.
Because we are heating the earth at an enormous rate, much of it emanating from Louisiana as the #1 methane producer in the Western Hemisphere. Think about that. We lead the Western Hemisphere in methane producing
Oh, good Lord.
from the LNG plants. So that's the purpose of this book,
Okay.
is to talk about leadership in the new normal, is how do we adapt technology to solve the challenges that we face living on this earth.
Right.
Because you know what? We might have the most powerful army in the world, but we can't defeat this with our army.
Right.
We need people on the street,
Need
advocates,
us.
to talk about, hey, let's save our water, our land, our air, and we ought to be able to grow a vegetable garden and go pick it without fear that particles have dropped on it and can make it sick.
Yeah.
And when we produce that production of 30% more food, we got to remember 30% of the food we produce now go to waste. It's either go bad in the supermarket or go bad in your refrigerator, and we're all part of that problem. How can we solve that?
Yeah, I just cleaned mine out yesterday. It's bad.
Third of it, we throw it away.
That's the whole purpose of this. You have taught me so much today, as everyone who sits at this table. It's unbelievable. I just want to know, how do you describe a good neighbor?
Well, I grew up in a little small village called Lakeland, Louisiana. Where literally most the community were farmers, they were Catholic, we had pretty large families, 3 to 5, we were 12. And much of our subsistence was dependent on taking care of one another.
Yeah.
If somebody was sick and they needed to go to the hospital and one had a truck and the other didn't, they'd ride a horse or somebody running, say, let's go take Aunt Philo to the hospital.
Yeah.
And that's how we live. That we live in a community. And the best life people can get is when neighbors are taking care of neighbors, regardless of the religious or ethnicity.
Anything. Yeah.
Or a personal belief. That is what make a neighbor. That's how America was built. Even when we were severely divided, neighbors took care of neighbors.
Yeah. Well, I hope that we can move
In our
back
worst
to that.
days, neighbors would still take care of neighbors
Yeah.
when it came to living.
Yeah.
Now, the most segregated place on Sunday was church.
Yeah.
And church still got to redeem itself.
I agree.
Because some of the stuff that's being proliferated now in church, in some of the most fundamental churches, that the woman ought to be home and shouldn't vote, let the husband, that has to stop. We cannot buy into that.
Yeah. I agree.
So while we've got socioeconomic issues we got to deal with and environmental issues, we got to make sure we pay attention to where some people want to take us.
Yeah.
That is not original scripture that I read.
Yeah, they're changing the doctrine.
Somebody asked me the other day, well, what do you think about detention centers? I said, I don't think Jesus would be into making detention centers.
Good answer.
Because he was refugee himself. He had to leave his land
Yeah.
because he was being persecuted because of his belief.
Just like these people.
We don't do shit like that in America.
Yeah.
Excuse my French.
We shouldn't do stuff like that in America. I understand
You with me?
perfectly. Yes,
But
I
I
do.
had to slip that one in.
I feel you. We can keep that one. So I just thank you. And thank you for joining another episode of the Good Neighbor Podcast. I hope you learned a lot today. General is so very passionate about laws that were created to protect us and that we're not following. So the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, all of those things are set in place to protect us. And we, as a community, need to come together and make sure that those laws are actually being put to use and that our communities are cleaner and safer like they're supposed to be. Step up. Be the person in your family. Be the person on your job. Be the person in your community to make a difference. Thank you for joining the Good Neighbor podcast, and you have a wonderful day.
And vote.
And please vote. Thank you very much. Thank you, General.